I just closed like the largest deal at the company that year, pulling out of the garage, my used Jeep Cherokee, and he's pulling out his brand new Bentley, going to the waterfront in the yacht. And I said, what am I missing here? I saw my commission check compared to what he made, and that's when it clicked. I realized that entrepreneurship was the way to go. At the end of that year, my partner and I were number one in the company, and I quit.
You live this life where you're out, you're partying all the time. You're not a partier anymore. What a drastic change in lifestyle. You've had 3 successful careers.
Thank you. I know I have one more.
Do you already know what it is?
No.
But
Yeah,
hey, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Good to see you, bud.
Of course, man.
Long time.
Always good to see you, dude.
We met at JMU. I think we met on the basketball court.
We did.
You were a little older than me. When did you graduate?
You might have been dunking on me. I graduated 1997.
That's when I started. So I saw you briefly. I saw you for like a semester or 2.
That's right.
And then you went off to here. And actually, I don't know your story about where you went after that. I mean, I know eventually you got into nightclubs and restaurants. We'll get into that. But didn't you have another job before that?
Yeah, I kind of took the easy way out. At the time, having a computer information systems degree and programming was a good job market for that.
Oh, I remember. Everyone was like, "Oh, you got to have CIS in your resume."
That's right.
So I was MIS, Marketing Information Systems.
Oh, I can see that. I mean, you're an incredible marketer. I've never programmed a computer in my life. Never done a program. I went right into sales. Went to work for my sister's brother-in-law at a system integrator selling hardware and software for corporations. And
what was the name of that one?
Annixter. I don't even know if it's still around.
Yeah.
It was a pretty big corporation out of Chicago at the time.
Cool.
And then transitioned from there into some other tech sales stuff. And then my last kind of corporate America job was with Blackboard software, which I'm sure a lot of people have heard of. You've used it in school at some point, but online learning, and handled the Midwest of the United States. And the real story about it was, and it's funny because the CEO probably, I still know him, but I just closed like the largest deal at the company that year.
Yeah.
And I'm pulling out of the garage, and my used Jeep Cherokee, and he's pulling out his brand new Bentley, going to the waterfront in the yacht. And I said, what am I missing here?
Yeah.
I saw my commission check compared to what he made, and I realized that entrepreneurship or owning your own business was the way to go. And had some mentors at the time, and I was reading all these books and trying to understand how to do it. And a good friend came to me and was like, throw those books away. There's like a line, and on the other side of the line is entrepreneurship, and on this side of the line is corporate America. Cross the line. You can always go back, but I guarantee you, once you cross that line, you'll never go back.
It's interesting.
And so at the end of that year, my partner and I were number one in the company, and I quit.
Okay.
My manager at the time said, if you don't show up to the sales meeting a day early, you won't have a job. And I said, I just was the number one salesperson in the company or the team. And I won't have a job because I won't show up a day early for a sales meeting. And that's when it clicked. I was just like, I can't be working for somebody else ever again. And so I quit, had nowhere to go, nothing to do.
How old were you at this time?
I was probably in my late 20s, so 27, 28. And I called a friend of mine who's a commercial real estate broker, Matt Alexander. And I said, hey, who are you representing? It's a franchise. He says, what do you mean? I said, I need a business. And he said, I'm actually representing this company called Robex Fruit Smoothies. They're opening up their first location outside of LA, anywhere in the country. And the guy who's opening it needs a partner or wants someone to buy him out. I said, I'm in. He goes, what do you mean you're in? I said, I'm in. I have no choice. And so flew out to California, met them, came back.
Still around.
It's still around the corner here on 17th and L is the first one. That's the one I opened up. And went out to SBA, got $400,000 SBA loan, put $100,000 of my own money. That's all I had at the time.
Yeah.
And now I was a franchise owner. And
you asked me earlier, why do you guys do these podcasts?
Yeah.
Because of this. I've known you for many years. I had no idea about this.
Yeah.
That's crazy. All right.
So I figured I could learn on how to be an entrepreneur with a booklet, with a manual. And that's the great thing about franchising is they kind of give you a manual on how to do it. But I learned how to, inventory, sales, accounting, labor, lease negotiation, dealing with landlords, dealing with employees. I'd have to, bail my employees out of jail just to get them to work the next day sometimes.
Really?
Oh yeah, I can have stories. But
we'll get into this.
Yeah, but it taught me everything, and it kind of was like, entrepreneurship by fire, and it was great. I wouldn't do anything differently. I wasn't that creative to come up with an idea myself, and so it really helped. And it's good to see that store's still around 20 years later.
How long did you own it for?
I owned it for about 3 years, and the reason that happened is because I was walking up the street one day up Connecticut Avenue, trying to get lunch, and I saw a for lease sign on a second floor space on this kind of like, smaller building, and I just called the number. The gentleman came down, was part owner, and there's the broker, who's probably 75 years old. Paul Robb is his name, and he said, "Come on up." Looked at it as like an old marketing office, and demoing it, and he said, "What do you want to do?" I said, "I have no idea. I just called you. I thought it was a great location, and I'm a new entrepreneur." He said, "You should put a nightclub in here." I said, "Okay, cool. What do you want? What do you want to do?" He goes, "It's like $30 a square foot or something."
Yeah.
He shook hands. He looked me in the eye. He says, "Once I shake your hand, you have a deal." I said, "Deal." And I walked down the stairs, and I said, "Oh no, what am I going to do here?"
Good Lord.
And so I called two of my buddies and said, "You guys want to own a nightclub with me?" And said, "Sure, where? What?" I said, "We got to put up our own money, and we'll figure it out." And so that's what started my first nightclub called Play Lounge. And I was getting up at 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning, working this smoothie place during the day.
Yeah.
Got home at like 6 or 7 at night, go work out, eat dinner, turn around, and 4 nights a week I'd turn around and go back to the nightclub and work until 3 in the morning. And so, single, 28, 29 years old.
Yeah.
You had the energy, you had the time. And so then I started realizing I spent half the amount of time at the nightclub that I did the smoothie place, but I made double the amount of money.
Right.
So like what's wrong with this?
Yeah.
And so that's when I decided to sell the smoothie company.
Nice. Did you end up doing okay on it when you sold it?
Okay. Yeah, financially. What we didn't realize, it being the first location outside of California, is that, guess what? In D.C., there's 3 or 4 months that it's pretty cold. And at the time, nobody knew what an acai bowl was. Nobody knew what a smoothie, the health benefits of it. And so we were way ahead of our time.
Yeah.
You look at companies now that, ones that I love, like South Block and Amir and what they do there. He's doing great with acai bowls. Nobody knew what an acai bowl was back then. And so at the time, too, the con about the franchise was they wouldn't allow us to have caffeine from coffee. Or
Interesting.
Tea. And so in the winter, it's January, February, people want coffee. We couldn't sell it. And so we would break even or lose a little bit of money in the winter, but make money in the summer. And so understanding how to balance the books and the accounting and the cash flow was a learning lesson there. So we're probably about broke even, maybe lost a little bit of money.
That's. First of all, I had no idea about any of this. Yeah. And the fact that it was very, in a sense, quick decisions.
Yes.
Oh, there's a space. I'm just going to call this guy. And then, that owner, first of all, like, today's day and age, how hard is it to lease out any type of commercial space? The quickest sale in the history of a commercial agent, from that guy's perspective, to get you to rent it out, it's pretty awesome. Yeah. How long did it take to build out that? To build out a space for a nightclub.
It was kind of in the day and age of these small lounges. Yeah. So we're about 3,000 square feet on the second level, really tiny, narrow staircase. So there was some difficulties with it, but again, I love to give friends and colleagues credit. Windmark Construction, it's a local firm here, did a great job building it out for us. And so I don't remember quite honestly how long it took, but it took every dollar that we had at the time to do it. But it was a great business, met a lot of interesting people, and hence 10, 15 years later, a lot of those same people are my clients now.
Well, I think that's what's really interesting about your story. Your story is a great example of relationships and how you've kept these relationships through completely different industries, and now they work with you today. And for those that don't know, which most probably do, you definitely focus in the luxury market. You're selling some of the most expensive homes and buying them around this area. So you did that nightclub or lounge. But you had multiple nightclubs, right? And restaurants. Like what else did you get into?
We did a public bar, which was a sports bar across the street on Connecticut Avenue. We did another one in Tenleytown. We had Sushi Rock in Arlington, which is in a courthouse. My last
Still there, right?
It's still there.
Yeah.
Most of them are still there. Griffin, which was up the street on 1337 Connecticut Avenue. But the best ones we did was play Public, which is still around, which I love, and then Sushi Rock, which I really enjoy seeing them kind of continued success with the owners, which meant kind of to me the concept worked, the plan worked, and it could go through different years of ownership.
I mean, that's a lot of different ones. So you didn't sleep much that decade.
No. I mean, a lot more energy. Hence one of the reasons why I switched careers later to get out of the nightclub and restaurant business. But it was a lot of fun. It really just was a lot of fun. Met a lot of really neat people.
All right, so you're in this world. So we got Christina Aguilera, Lionel Richie, we got Beckham, we got Jamie Foxx. All these people came to your nightclubs, right? By the way, if you haven't seen the new Netflix documentary on, I think it's We Are the World with Lionel Richie, amazing. Highly recommend it.
I'd love to see it. That was my song.
It was, it was good. It was good. Yeah. They go through the whole thing on how it happened. It's a great story.
Yeah.
Tell me about hosting some of these people. Tell me some stories that may have occurred from this.
One of the best ones was Jamie Foxx.
Yeah.
So Jamie Foxx, if you remember, was in the movie with Tom Cruise called Collateral. And he was over at a restaurant here in D.C. called Cafe Milano. And this was when Dan Snyder, the previous owner of the Commanders, really wanted to get into the movie business.
Okay.
And so he was following Jamie Foxx around, trying to get him to convince him to do a movie with him.
And what does following around mean?
Well, apparently he was at Milano.
Yeah.
And
he's like, I know he's there. I'm going there.
Yeah. So he went there. And then we get a call from the maitre d' at Milano saying, hey, we have Jamie Foxx. He wants to go somewhere to party. And so can he come over? I'm like, yeah, sure. And so he came over and he had just released a song, Gold Digger. And so we're in the nightclub. Everyone can't believe Jamie Foxx is there. And then all of a sudden Snyder shows up. And he wants to get a table right next to him.
This is good.
So he and his bodyguards get a table next to him, and Jamie Foxx comes up to me and says, "Do you have a microphone?" I said, "Microphone? This is a nightclub. This is not like a concert hall." He said, "Get me a microphone." I said, "Cool." Go next door. One of the guys that got me in the nightclub business, Dave Kareem, said, "I got a microphone for you. What is it for?" I said, "Jamie Foxx." Said,
next door, you didn't have one.
We didn't have one. Like there was no need for us. So the nightclub next door was called 1223. Yep. And so Dave is a good friend and mentor in the business and said, "Yeah, come on. What is it for?" And I said, "Jamie Foxx is there." He said, "Oh, can I come over?" So he comes over.
Did they have cell phones back then?
I don't know. Barely. Yeah. It still was a flip phone at the time. And so we give him a microphone. He says, "Go to your DJ and tell him to play Gold Digger." But awesome. Either somehow don't put the vocals or just make sure the vocals are low. I'm like, okay, cool. Next thing you know, Jamie Foxx turns the microphone on and sings Gold Digger to our entire club.
I mean, just going
place went unbelievable. I mean, this is, probably 15 years ago, and I still get people coming up to me and asking me about it.
Really?
Reminding me that they were there that night.
Bastard. The cell phones just didn't work like they do today.
No way. That would have been all over. All over. And so, and you can see it now in nightclubs when people perform, it's all over social media.
Yeah.
And so fast forward, the night's over, and we have a waitress comes up to me and says, "Hey, Dan Snyder just left, and he didn't pay his tab." I said, "How much was the tab?" And she said something like $3,000, which was a lot. And I said, "Well, you're either going to pay for it or he's going to pay for it." And she goes, "What do you mean I'm going to pay for it?" "Well, he doesn't give me any free tickets to Skins games, and so I'm not going to give him any free drinks."
Yeah.
And so she chased him down the stairs, knocked on his window of his car, asked for the credit card. He gave it to her. She came back up, and she didn't realize that she had put Jamie Foxx and Dan Snyder's drinks on the same tab.
Okay.
So she said, "What should I do?" I said, "Just ring it on Dan Snyder's card."
Yeah.
I don't care if he hears this at all. He's not going to do it. So she goes, "How much should I get for tip?" I said, "Whatever you think is fair." So she gave herself, a really good tip, and he signed the thing, the receipt. And so Jamie Foxx is coming out of the restroom, and he comes up to me and says, "Hey man, I got to go. Thank you for a great night." And he says, "I need to pay." And so he pulls out this wad of cash to pay. And I said, "No, don't worry about it. I got you." And he said, "Really?" I said, "Yeah, we got you." And little did he know that Dan Snyder paid for his tab.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's
and
amazing.
I didn't care for Dan Snyder, still don't. So
that is too good. Care. And Dan never booked him, never got in the movie business.
Never got in the movie business. Jamie Foxx came back through town, came to our club again, remembered who we were.
That's awesome. That is too good.
It was cool. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, I have a Derek Jeter story.
Oh, we're going to need that. Yeah.
You'd appreciate the Derek Jeter story. So I guess we're not talking about real estate anymore, but Derek Jeter had he had a manager who was a friend of mine.
Yeah.
And I think they were playing the Orioles. I don't think the Nats were around yet. And he said, "Hey, Derek wants to go out to dinner. Can you get a table for him and he and his couple of his teammates and just have dinner with you in D.C. because there's nothing really going on in Baltimore." I said, "Sure." So we get a table at the sushi restaurant in town, and he and Jorge Posada and Bernie Williams and I can't remember the third. Oh, Robinson Cano. Mm-hmm. So the Yankees back when they were winning the World Series, and they come in, and I told the owner of the restaurant, he's like, "Can you just get a table for us?" And we show up to the restaurant, and there's 30 women at our table. And we can't sit down.
Yeah.
And all of them wanted to meet Derek.
Yeah.
And so we had to move people around and so forth. But the manager told me, whatever you do not invite him to your nightclub. He's got a game the next day at 1 p.m. He does not want to go out.
Yeah.
I'm like, cool, no problem. We're having dinner. We're having a good time. Leans over to me and says, "Hey, I heard you have a nightclub." I said, "Yeah, I do." He said, "Let's go over there." I said, "I was told we're not allowed to come to the nightclub." He said, "Well, I'm going to go to another nightclub unless you want me to come to yours." I said, "Cool, let's go." So we go over there. We have a great time. It's 3 a.m, 4 a.m. I get a text message from his manager. And I said, "Oh, no. What happened?" Manager goes, "Just want to let you know, Derek texted me, said, 'Thanks, Sherif. Had an amazing time. What a place.'" So I'm like, "Oh, this is pretty cool. Derek Jeter had a good time. I'm a big fan."
Yeah.
Next day I wake up, I'm like, I want to see how he does. It's a 1 o'clock game in the afternoon. These guys stayed out pretty late.
Sure.
I've always just kind of wondered how they did it.
Oh, this is good. Yeah.
Yeah. He's, I think he bats, second in the order, comes up. First time at bat. I'm barely getting out of bed at this point. And he hits a double off the wall first time at bat. I'm like, that's Derek Jeter.
I mean, right? And it's also that generation back then, right? You listen to some of these guys, well, it's Ric Flair, which is a little different. But have you seen his documentary?
No, I haven't seen it.
Outrageous, but ridiculous. He's like, I was up all night long and then I wrestled. Yeah. But I mean, that's too good. That's too good. Now, you always wonder that, right? Because I feel like in today's day and age with these professional athletes, I mean, I hear it because we have a friend that caddies on the PGA Tour. And it's they're like, when this guy's when I was doing the tour 15 years ago, it's so different. Yeah. Now everyone's just working out, hydrating, eating well. Yeah. Whereas back in the day, it was just such a different environment. It's really interesting how there's so much science and good health, which is good. Yeah. But there was a completely different world back in the day.
Well, I also think, Tiger Woods changed that a little bit. He was kind of the first golfer to lift weights and stay healthy, and then Tom Brady and his longevity in the NFL. And there's just so much more money in sports now that these guys, if they can play longer and stay healthy, they make a lot more money.
I love it. I love it. Beckham, did he make an appearance at your nightclub?
Beckham did too.
Is there anything you can talk about that or not talk about
that? The quick story is he'd just come to the United States and he was with the LA Galaxy, if you remember. Oh. And so he wanted to show his team a good time, and they were staying in Alexandria, and we had made some connections with some security companies in the area, and they said, "Hey, Dave wants to come out, but you can't say anything." Now, this is 15 years ago, and he is going to take the hotel bus and his teammates and come out to your nightclub. I said, "Great, come on over." So we're sitting there and we're having a good time, and apparently we didn't know this at the time, but he wasn't supposed to be going out in the city in the United States. He'd been put on the on notice from his wife and Posh Spice, I guess. And so he comes out and we're having a good time, and he's sitting next to me, and apparently one of his teammates is texting his own wife, "Hey, this is a great time. David came. It's his first week with the team, and he's taking us out. He's so nice. He's so great." She texts Posh Spice, and great. I get a knock on my shoulder, and it's David Beckham saying, "Hey, man, I got to take this phone call." And I look, and it's his wife calling him. He's like, where can I go quietly to take this phone call? I'm not supposed to be out. And I didn't know.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm like, yeah, head to the office, take the phone call. I came back. Everything was fine. But, and then on the way, I didn't tell you this earlier, on the way down, I'm not one to ask anybody for a selfie or pictures. And back then it wasn't that big of a deal.
Yeah.
I just wanted to respect his privacy. But I will tell you, this was pretty neat. We walked down the stairs and he was leaving and he asked my partner and I if he could take a selfie, the two of us.
That's cool.
And so the three of us got in a picture.
That's pretty good.
And he sent it to us and we have the picture. So it's kind of cool.
And so I'm assuming you're walking down the road, you saw a real estate sign, just decided to change that. No, what was that story? Like, how did you go from that to the real estate industry?
You're good at getting stories out of me. So it was, I was 37 at the time. So we're talking, early, 2012, 2013 time. And I had a friend of mine who owned Valor Development. And I went to him and said, I want to be a developer. You're doing so great. That's what I want to do. And said, can you teach me? And I kind of wanted to get out of the nightclub business. We were really good at the business, in the restaurant business. I just didn't love it. And I could see myself, 5-10 years down the road, having a family and a wife and so forth, and not wanting to be in that business necessarily for me. And so he said, do you have a big piece of land or do you have a lot of money? Yeah. And I looked at him and I said, I have neither. And he said, okay, well, go get your real estate license. And I said, excuse me? And this is my humble moment in life. And I've only said this once, and I kind of say it in confidence with people, but I'll say it now in the podcast. I went to him and I said, do you know who I am? And it's the last time I've ever said that in my life. And what I meant by that was, owning restaurants in the city and being active and out. You got to know a lot of really interesting people. I could sit in any seat I wanted to at a Wizards game or Caps game. I could get into any restaurant. I was, flying around in private jets. And that's what I thought. I thought I was bigger than who I really was. And so it takes a big, piece of, humble pie to say, go get your real estate license. At the time, I didn't look highly upon the industry and the profession, and for a lot of reasons. And so I listened to his advice. And while I was going through that process, I was trying to decide if I wanted to be a commercial broker. So either office leasing or sales or retail leasing, which I had done a lot of my own leases in some of the restaurants, or residential real estate. Yeah. And there were pros and cons on all of them. A friend of mine who was a Washington Capitals hockey player came to me and said, hey, man, I trust you. Can you refer me to a real estate agent? I want to sell my condo and buy a house. I said, why don't you give me 30 days? He goes, what do you mean? I said, I'm going to get my real estate license. He goes, great, love to use you. Yeah. And so that's what got me into residential real estate, really. He called me and said, hey, I need some help. And I needed to figure out how to continue my lifestyle and pay my bills and so forth. And I haven't had a salary in, at that time for 10 years. And so that's how I figured it out.
That's awesome. I mean, damn, these are some it goes back to it. Okay, just do it. Yeah, just go and do it. Yeah. I heard on another podcast that you were on that you did something it was for the first year. You did an open house every single weekend-ish over the course of a year. What was that experience like?
Yeah, so, being 37, starting a brand new career with no guaranteed income coming in, you got to do what you have to do. And this is part of my frustration. I was talking to someone on the way here today with kind of the different mindset that some younger agents have now. Yeah. And I'd be more than happy to talk to anyone that disagrees with me. But I went and worked for a mentor at the time. And he was really big at open houses. And I figured the only way I can really learn this business and speed up my knowledge is by doing two things. One, doing as many open houses as possible, being in front of as many people as possible. I didn't have the clientele at that time that he had. And so how do I learn? And so doing an open house every weekend, I did 47 or 48 weeks out of the 52 for that first year. I would do Saturdays and Sundays. I'd do Sundays. I'd do anything I could. And the other thing was I'd get in the car with him. So I'd beat him to the office every morning if I could, and I'd stay later than him in the office every day. And he was, old school, so he'd want to be in the office all the time. Now you can't beg an agent to come into an office. Sure. But that's how I learned. And I said, anytime you leave the office, whether it's a listing appointment, a buyer tour, a closing, I don't care if you want to get lunch. I want to be in the car with you. I want to go with you. I'll sit in the back. I just want to learn. And what I learned was a few things. He taught me, never drive home the same way every single day because you'll see different properties and different things that are going on. We get so used to just taking the same roads. Yeah.
know the inventory of where you want to work. And so whether you take down addresses or you go look on the tax record, understand who lives where, what they bought the house for, what they sold the house for, all those things, because you can become the industry or the market leader and expert. And then you just never know who a client's going to be. And so I used to believe like, whoever you met was just a friend you never met yet. And so the same thing with clients, you just never know.
On that note, give us some stories of some clients you didn't expect that became clients.
Good one. So that same gentleman got a cold call into the office, and this family from overseas in Asia wanted to come see a $7.5 million property that we had listed at like 6 a.m. on a Saturday morning, and he didn't want to go. And so he said, "You can go take this. This is not a real lead. They don't even, they don't know what they want." And so I went and met. There was a language barrier. Barely could speak English. Started figuring out how to communicate. Started to realize that they wanted a 20,000 square foot house. And I said, "Why 20,000 square feet?" They thought that was the definition of success in the United States, was coming over here and buying a 20,000 square foot house. And I said, "Well, what are the other things that you want?" And she said, "We need to be close to Tyson's Galleria Mall." I said, "Why?" She goes, "Because the two times I come here to visit my son, which I realized they're buying the house for their son, I want to be able to go shopping easily." Okay. And so they ended up buying and building a home with us for $6.5 million within a mile of the Galleria. Yeah. And we convinced them, instead of 20,000 square feet, to be 15,000 square feet.
Ah, look at
that. So imagine
Give
that,
some
right?
good advice.
Yeah, imagine that, right? So, but the idea was, nobody thought that they were real clients.
Yeah.
Nobody wanted to meet somebody at 6 or 6:30 in the morning on a Saturday. At the time, I had no excuse other than the night before. Did I sleep early enough to get up in the morning? Yeah. And so that taught me that, again, you just never know who your clientele is going to be, and you got to be open to everything.
I mean, that's too good.
Yeah, that's kind of neat.
That's too good. And so, like, you live this life where you're out, you're partying all the time. I mean, I know you now. I mean, you're like a boring man. You're a boring old man. I mean, you're like wearing hoodies like me. By the way, good job on the hoodies. I
love the hoodies.
The hoodies are the best. But you're not a partier anymore. I mean, you've changed. What a drastic change in lifestyle.
Yeah.
I'm impressed.
Oh, well, my wife's not impressed. She said I sold her a bill of goods. She wants me to be a little more fun. When I decided to change careers, it's also, a change in like kind of lifestyle, making sure that I become like a good family man, a good husband, good father to my future kids. And now that we have 3 children, and I run a decent business, there's just different things that I focus on and my goals and trying to be, kind of the best role model for not only my children, but maybe other agents out there, hopefully down the road that might say, "Hey, how'd you do it? And how'd you switch careers?" And I do get that question a lot, is like, how'd you switch careers? Yeah. Why did you do it? How did you make that transition look so easy? It's not easy, but you kind of just figure it out as you go.
I mean, you've had 3 successful careers. I mean, looking back, you did really well after college, doing that sales job. Mm-hmm. Then you went nightclub. Then you went real estate. I mean, there's other ones in there too, but it's impressive. It's good work.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. Thank you. I'm very proud of you. But you've had a similar sort of, career. You've had some different careers, and this is not my podcast to ask you those questions, but somebody should, because when you first moved back here, that was pretty neat to get to know your story after college. I have one more career in me.
Oh, yeah. Do you already know what it is?
No, but I do. I know I have one more.
I believe it. I believe it.
It might not, I'll tell you one of these days.
I'm excited to hear about it and see it. But, I mean, that makes sense to me. I mean, look, especially, I was actually doing a podcast earlier, and someone said they're retiring in a couple of years. Real estate, it's like, in a sense, it's like sexy from the outside. And I'll tell you what's not sexy is title. But that was kind of why I was looking for it, because I was in a sexy industry before. Obstacle races. You might have heard like Tough Mudder, Spartan Race. Ours was Wipeout Run. And I was like, everyone wants to be in it. And there's so much competition. The margin's so bad. So I was like, I'm looking for a boring industry. Yeah. And that title luckily came about. But, his whole thing was, he was like, I would never do real estate if I could do it again. And because it's a very challenging industry, and people don't realize the grind. They don't realize, sometimes they see situations where an agent might get 2.5% or 3%. There wasn't a ton of work done, but they don't notice the 7 days a week. They don't notice all the times the deals don't happen, right? But I'm hearing more and more from agents being like, I wouldn't do it again. If you had to look back, would you do real estate again?
Great question. Yes. And they're for a couple reasons. One, to me, it was never about loving real estate. It was never about, it was kind of like, I had to do it. I kind of had to figure out how to do it. And I enjoyed the people part of it. I really, truly enjoy the relationships I've made. And the same mentor that got me into real estate, about the license thing, he told me something that still resonates. And when I talk about mentor, he's my age, but he's just a lot more accomplished and intelligent about the industry. He said, it's not about the transactions you do, the money you make during real estate. It's about the people that you're going to meet along the way. And the type of real estate you're going to sell, Sherif, and the people you're going to meet, you're going to meet some really, really interesting people throughout the process. And you think about it, what reconnected you and I after you moved back here was I was in real estate.
Yeah.
Who knows if we would have connected in the same way if you weren't getting into the title business.
Sure.
And so I have a lot of stories about how I connected or reconnected with people that used to be coming through my restaurants or nightclubs, and we reconnected through real estate. I just had a gentleman who's a very successful wealth advisor and here in the city, and he reached out to me after years of not talking. And I said, "Why'd you reach out to me?" He said, "I remember when there used to be a line in your nightclub and you wouldn't let anyone in. You'd always let me and my 3 buddies in. Maybe because you were scared of us, because my buddy was huge, but you always let us in no matter what." And I remembered that from 15 years ago. And why he would choose me to help him with his real estate 15 years later, but that meant something to him. And so it's about the people you meet. I wouldn't do it. I would do it again. It's a tough business. I've always thought that sexy businesses are not that great, but and the TV shows that we see now are not, are not really giving us really good perspective on what the business is like and how difficult it is. But if you take it seriously, you work really hard, you treat your clients right, it'll come back to you in success. And I always you talked about the 2.5%, 3%. Really quickly, there's some deals that are really easy or easier, and there's some deals that are more difficult. I've always believed you don't get paid on how easy it was or how hard it was, and people don't pay me for that transaction. They're paying me for the previous 1,000 transactions that I did, the 10 years of knowledge and experience, the relationships I have with other real estate agents, the relationships, the understanding I have of the neighborhood and the market values and stuff. That's what you're paying me for. That's what you're paying a real estate agent for. You're not paying us for that specific transaction only.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. Well, look, I'm great to have you on. I think when I look back at your story, I think your story is the one story you've had so far on the podcast where relationships matter. And you've held on to these relationships from industry to industry to industry. So I'm excited to see what this next career is, because I know what's happening.
I appreciate it, man. Thanks.
Good to see you, buddy.
Thanks for coming up. Yeah, take care.